Beck and welcome to a video where I am going to discuss some mentor characters. I had this idea because in Australia at the beginning of September it is Father's Day, and I thought based on that day I might go back and look at some of the books that I've loved and seen whether I liked the mentor characters, whether they're fathers or not. I thought it would be interesting to actually catalogue them, because when I talk about a mentor, often in fantasy that can mean like a magical wizard or someone wise that has all of the answers, and that character that has all the answers gets killed off early because you don't want that character there to give all your main character the answers. So in terms of mentors, I don't mean characters like the wise old wizard that get killed off early. These are characters that I feel like have stuck with the main character and brought a lot of meaning into their life, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Also, often the wise mentor character imparts some cryptic wisdom before they kick the bucket, and that is not the case. These characters are quite consistent in their support and their trust and wisdom, and that's why I wanted to kind of shine a light on them. The first character is Night Eyes from the Farseer trilogy, but Night Eyes doesn't come into the story until book 2, when we also kind of understand more of Fitz as a character. And Robin Hobb has really set up Fitz already in this series as somebody who is very isolated, and he's learning all of these strategies about being a bastard son within the royal family, which has a lot of responsibilities attached to it and a lot of imagery attached to it and assumption as well. But because he's got this very unique position, he doesn't have a lot of people to relate to. And that's where Night Eyes comes in. I feel like Night Eyes grounds Fitz and reminds him of the present, because Fitz often gets caught up in his own head a lot and he starts to spiral in different ways and he just gets down. Whereas Night Eyes is like, no, we are grounded in this moment. We're in the present. This is what we need to do. You are with me. And I found that very refreshing, and it's a nice stabilizing point of familiarity, especially just to remind yourself as a human being reading a book in a situation where you're starting to think about everything laid out ahead of you. It's getting very overwhelming. Night Eyes is a character that is so close to my heart because he helps remind me that, hang on, just take a step back, look up at the sky, look at that tree. Isn't it beautiful? Look at where you're standing right now and just appreciate and breathe, and stop stressing about all the things that you don't directly have control over. Only think about what you can see, touch, feel, and taste. And I think that's a really valuable character to have. It doesn't have to be somebody who is leagues ahead of you, has had such brilliant life experience. Sometimes all it takes is someone close to you to go, hey, hold on a sec, take a minute. And I think that's why I love Night Eyes so much. Then another character that I completely and utterly adore is Thomas from the Green Creek series. Wolfsong is the first book. I also absolutely incredibly adored Ravensong as well, which is the sequel. Third book isn't out yet, but I'm sure I'm gonna love that as well. Thomas is the father of the Bennett family, and we follow Ox in this book, who is not related to the Bennett family. He lives across the street, and because they live in this small town of Green Creek, everyone kind of knows each other. So I like how it's got a coziness sense to this series because of the locale. But Ox is from a very young age told negative things by his father, who then leaves. So it's just Ox and his mother, and Ox starts to make friends and relationships with the Bennett family. And obviously something in Green Creek about the Bennett family is not quite right because, you know, it's called Wolfsong, they are werewolves. And the fact that Thomas, as the alpha werewolf of his pack, he can technically control them and exert that power. However, he chooses to let characters come to him, make their own choices, and there is an openness and a trust to him that means there's a vulnerability, but because people can see that vulnerability in him, they in turn let it show in themselves, and that builds such a beautiful found family and trust aspect of respect that I just loved in this series. It's absolutely beautiful, and this dynamic of pack and trust and a support network just forms such a beautiful dynamic for Ox to fall into and be part of, and I think it's just such a brilliant thing. I feel these characters in my heart and soul in the same way that I feel Night Eyes in my heart and soul. These characters feel real, and I think it's because they are so open that I get that feeling from them. Because they let characters trust them, I therefore trust them too. And then somewhat unlike me, I've got a young adult book, but this series I read and loved back in the day. I'm worried about picking it up again now because I don't want my views of it to shift, but I think I will have to reread it again soon just because I really love that underdog main character. And the series is Spellslinger, the main character is Kellen, but the mentor that I want to talk about in here is Faru Parfax. Now, Faru is kind of like a traveling nomad, and she encounters Kellen and not forces Kellen, but through leading by example. She's kind of chaotic and a bit unhinged, but Kellen realizes that she trusts herself and also, as an extension, trusts Kellen, and through her example and what he sees in her, he ends up realizing the cycles of abuse that he has been exposed to for his entire life, and he starts reevaluating his own personality and making some really difficult choices because he's seen the way that she carries herself and she encounters people, and she always looks for the best in them and has hope for them. And because she had that hope for herself and for others, he can find it in himself as well, which I just think is beautiful. Like, we look for the things in other people that we want to see in ourselves, which is just lovely. And don't get me wrong, while it does have those brilliant foundations of more vulnerable aspects to characters, it's also very funny to read because Kellen is an underdog. He's constantly trying to fight for himself. He's not very good at the magic system in here, and he makes friends with a squirrel cat creature. So you've got an animal companion that's unhinged and likes to steal things. You've got Kellen, who doesn't really understand who he is, and Faru, who's being just chaotic over there, that they've all got to go and rush to her and help. So it's a very wild series, but I think it is really well grounded, and that is why I keep getting drawn back to it when I make lists like this. I think it's just a really brilliant, fast-paced story that has a lot of gems in it too. And I really have a respect for Faru and how Sebastian de Castell has written her and Kellen's relationship in this series. I think it's just beautiful. In this video, I really wanted to have 5 characters that were great mentors, but I could only think of 4. So unfortunately, this is the last one that I can talk about. But if you've got any others, do let me know, because I love that sense of trust and respect. It really lends to the found family trope and the understanding and identity development that I love to see in the series. I'm a huge character reader, even though plot obviously absorbs me as well, but character is really where it's at for me. And so I wanted to talk about Sarah, which is Nick's mum in Heartstopper. Heartstopper follows Charlie, and Charlie is gay. He's been outed at school and he's gone through a lot of bullying, and he ends up falling for his friend Nick on the rugby team because they are sitting next to each other one day in form, and they start to build up their friendship from that point onwards. And Nick starts questioning his own sexual identity, but it's through his and Charlie's budding relationship that Sarah starts to know Charlie a little bit more. And throughout the rest of the volumes, because this is just volume 1, it's actually quite shiny, I might hold up the paperback. Throughout the rest of the volumes, Sarah becomes kind of a key factor in the background relationships as a secondary character. And it's just nice to see that even in a young adult series, I don't often see many parents present, because parents are supposed to stop the kids going out and saving the world. They're supposed to be that hurdle that the character has to get past in order to do things. But in this series, it's about teenagers at high school, and they're just trying to find a safe space for themselves and figure themselves out. And a lot of that has to do with how you're brought up and what situation you're in, and whether you can be vulnerable with people that you trust and who love you. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to see Sarah go, well, you're just 16, you don't have to have the answers to everything in the world. So it's just a beautiful safety net. Basically, this video is me just being soppy for every book that I love. But I hope that makes people get on board with the books I love as well, because I want more people to love them. And Heartstopper is a joy, and it's made its own safe space. And I think everyone who comes to this series, no matter what age you are, obviously I'm an adult and I've read it as an adult, but I wish I had it as a teenager as well, just because it portrays such beautiful and healthy relationships and friendships. And it shows that even though there are the dark times and the tension points between people, it's not all bad. And you do have people in your life that love and care about you. And Sarah is one of those characters. But ultimately, these are the key stories that have fantastic mentor characters that aren't wise old wizards that have some cryptic delivery of information and then either disappear or get killed off at the beginning of the story, because who needs that when you've got some fantastic, healthy mentors that you can have instead? If you've read any of these, if you intend to read any of these, please let me know down below in the comments. I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come and chat to you down below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.